Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning today's 3 prakim Rambam, Hilchos, Carbon, Pesach, prakim Gimel, Dalid, and Hey. We are beginning with Pedig Gimel. Now, we learned yesterday a rule that if someone was Nimna, we learned the din of Minuyav. So if I was counted into 2 different groups, so we learned the rule that the one that was geshachted, the one that was slaughtered first, will be the one that I'm connected to. We're going to see many other cases in where we will not say this klal. Actually, we're going to learn rules that if there was 2 karbanos slaughtered for me, but the one who did the shechita didn't have in mind to do both of them for me. He had in mind, I'm doing 2, and you get to pick later whichever one you want to be part of. Sounds great. It's not great, because the rule is we paskin that by dinei Torah ein breira. And as we'll see, many other cases in this Pedig where there are more than 1 carbon Pesach, we're going to figure out what the halacha will be. Don't forget also that a person can be counted in, and a person can also remove themselves all prior to shechita, as we learned yesterday, and we're going to learn many nafkeminas, which is based on this klal. Koydem shechita, I can remove myself. After shechita, I cannot remove myself. We're going to learn the rule that if there is a carbon Pesach that has no owners, there's no ba'alim, that carbon Pesach has to be burnt. And we're going to learn many scenarios where we have different karbanos from different groups that got mixed up together, exactly how we go about it. It's going to be a very exciting Pedig. Pedig Gimel has 9 halachas, beginning with halacha Aleph. Says the Rambam, if a person tells his Eved, say ushchoito layas ha-Pesach, he gives him a very generic ask. He did not specify what animal should be brought. And as we learned yesterday, that a carbon Pesach could come either from a lamb or from a goat, as long as they're male within their first year. Now, in other words, if you want to take precedence, he always had a lamb. And this Eved went and he shechted a gedi, a goat, or that's not a problem. Because since the Mishaleach didn't specify what animal type, so then the Eved, the Shliach, has the right to pick whichever one. Now, if he said mimin pliny and the Eved deviated, now you got yourself a problem. However, here we go. The Eved slaughtered 2 animals because he was not told what animal type. And you have to add, the key here is that the Eved did not check both. If there are 2 animals that are being slaughtered for me, doesn't hurt me. Alama, like we learned yesterday, whichever one came first will be the one that's my Pesach. Here, the Eved only slaughtered 1 for his rabbi. He had a doubt. So he says, to cover my bases, I'm slaughtering 2 animal types. I don't know which one is for my rabbi. And later, he'll pick whichever one he wants. That's not good. That's the classic case of Breda, of retroactive clarification, which Emechanami midrabanan, like by Eruvin we say Breda, by all dinei Torah, ein Breda. Eino eichel mishneim. Gewalt. He cannot eat from neither of them. Now, in the case, guys, here's the key. In the case where he was the only person for whom the carbon was geshachted, and we also learned yesterday, even though it's ideal not to slaughter 1 carbon for 1 person, if it's shayach for that person to eat it, it's going to be okay. That was the case over here. In other words, being that he cannot eat of neither, there were no other minuyin. So this is a carbon that had no minuyin. That's another klal we're going to learn. The carbon has to be burnt. Now, the Lefi doesn't go on the Beis HaSreifa. The Lefi wants to make clear, she'einimdim al shnei psachim, meaning in the way that we explained. I can be nimna actively on both. Yeah, I cannot be nimna on one or the other. One or the other, then neither. Now, if the Mishaleach was a king or a queen, and the same scenario happened, the Evet shechted two korbanos, two animals. And again, not both. Having in mind, okay, I know my Evet, my master, my melech wants one. I'm covering all my bases. Whichever one he'll choose will be his. Here, yoichal min harishaim, and that is because of Shloim Malchus, if you remember that story. In other words, there was always, not always, there were at times very bad relationships between the religious community and the Melech or the Malka, as we find in the Gemara. And sometimes when they were told that what they did is ineffective altogether, and that would be in our case, could be that they won't even get the mitzvah of Korban Pesach, they would get upset, not at themselves for giving an instruction, not at their Eved for doing something that's not okay. They would get upset at the rabbinate, they would get upset at the community. So Pashat Shlem Achos here means that they allowed it to fly. And it's also interesting, it's not because of Shlem Malchus they said Yesh Breida. Oh, it's this Psak Din that Ein Breida is Ein Breida. They said whichever one happened first will be effective for the king. Halacha Beis. We're speaking sadly about Jewish kings, yeah, but these Jewish kings were not that, not the way they should have been. Halacha Beis. And the Mishaleach in this case in Halacha Beis told the Shliach what animal the cover like Gedi Oitlem, was the Mishaleach gave a clear instruction. Elamai, the Shliach, the Mishaleach said which one I want. The Shliach forgot. The Shachach Masha Amalek. So now it's different. Now you don't need retroactive Breina. You understand? Nowadays, a Shreichet Gedi V'Tleh. Now Taka, the Shliach should check both. And he should say, listen, Im Gedi Amar Li, Gedi Shaloi. Every carbon needs Minuyav. I'll be the one eating the other one. V'Tleh Shali. Im Tleh Amar Li, Tleh Shaloi, Gedi Shali. And that's perfectly fine. Because whichever one he was instructed to do, that was the one that he shachted for him. Now, Nocha case, Shachach Hashoy Leach, Masha Amaloi. It's very important to add these words, Rabbi Yaakov. The Shoyleach, or what we call the Mishaleach, also forgot after both were slaughtered. Add that in. Now, Shneim Yetzel Beis HaSreifah. Why? Since neither of them knows now which one was theirs, and therefore what, Chevra, the Eibishter knows, hold on, you're right. But another klal, I should have said it in the intro, that Ein HaPesach, the Pesach is brought only for it to be eaten. Unlike all the other karbanos, that once the Zrikas Adam happened, you got yourself your carbon. Of course, we would like for all the other steps to happen. The Ikir Pesach is for it to be eaten. In our case, neither the Mishaleach or the Shliach will be allowed to eat. Why? Because they don't know. So they can't eat it. Verstehst? Once you know that a Pesach cannot be eaten, it automatically becomes invalid. You can only eat it l'menuyev. You can only the menuyev. No one knows which one is which. Now, very good here. The Rambam writes it clear. So now, why is that? Because it was completely ineffective. Even during the Shechita, you already knew then that no one can eat it. But Shachach, Achash, and Nisrak Adam, even though Yetzel Beis HaSreifah, that doesn't change because you can't eat it. But if at the moment of Shechita, then potentially it could have been eaten, then you fulfilled your obligation. This is the Nakud of the whole Perek now. P'tura Melas is Pesach Sheni. It has to be B'shas, really, I'll tell you something. It's the Zrika. B'shas Zrika, Ru'uyim La'achila. And this is unlike other korbanos. Now, today we have to wake up running. This is Gavaldik. This first Perek is Uwa. And the Kavalai. And the Mishalech told him, Gedir to let. Okay, so before we had Shliach, here we have Eved. The Rambam is writing each one separately, but it's mamish the same thing. And Vuhu Sheyitan Loi Roya Shal Rabbi Gedi Vitleh. Listen here. So now, so here we have to add this whole nuance, because here, unlike in the first clause, a shliach can take two animals, like we said, and shecht one for him and one for his rabbi. An eved doesn't own anything. And furthermore, when you give something to an eved, mashakana eved, kana rabbi. So you have to figure out dinim of how to give something to an eved by making the statement. Now the master taka won't own it, and now you can make the condition we learned before. Which is gavaldik, and both will be okay. Both will be okay, Yaakov, as long as the shaleach remembers. Same thing. And if later the shaleach forgets, not like we learned above, at least the shashchita, if you know shazrika, then they were yoitzer. Anyways, lebeis hasreifa. If even shazrika, even the mishaleach forgot, that will be the worst case scenario. They both have to bring a Pesach shem. Okay, halach again. Next case. Bnei chabura she'amru le'echad. Now we have a group, not a individual. Say u'shchayt le'no sapesach. And who Amar Lohem, and he tells them, the Shliach tells them, Al Shecht for you, he was not invited, but Va'atem Shachat to a lie. Each one appointed the other a Shliach just for the Shechita. They're not part of that Chabura, and there's nothing wrong with that. The Shechet, first of all, the Shechet can be a claim. Shechita is Ksheira Bezor. The shechita could be done by one of the bnei chabura. The shechita can be done by anyone else. Now, v'shachtu hey v'shachatu. So now, oichlen kulam is shenishchat rishon va'achgat lebeis hasreif. So what happened actually was that you are now a member of two groups. Okay, that's the word over here, like we said in our intro. Notice when I told you shchoit aleinu means include yourself. And then this guy tells him, you know what? Here's an animal, and you shech that for all of us. So here you have a case where there were two animals, and these people were included in both. In the beginning of the Spedek, it was one or the other. You need Bereda, ain't Bereda. No, here you are included in both. That's the classic case. So we have to discover which one was slaughtered first, and that one will be for everyone. And the other one is completely invalid because it doesn't have any oichlov, because you can't be counted on two. You can only be counted on one. If a Korban Pesach has no oichlin, then it has to be both. Halacha dal. Chabura shavat Pischa, they lost their Pesach. So Amru la'achad, do me a favor. Say, ubakesh, go look for it, and when you find it, check it. So far, so good. Problem is that the group, they didn't know whether the shliach, whether the uvum will find it. So to cover their bases, they brought their own carbon. So like this. Reuven was the guy that went looking for it. We know that. Who oichlav mishaloi? Reuven gets to eat from that one, but listen to this. And they ate with him. Why? Because they told him, say, uvakesh ushchoit aleinu. They brought for themselves another one. They only did it because they didn't know whether he's going to find it or not. And vasheni yisarif. But listen to this. But ve'im shalohem nishchat rishoin, not Reuven, the group, they got the substitute. The substitute was brought first. Now, when they brought that first, that is an act of them removing themselves from the first animal. And like we learned yesterday, I can be nimna and I can they removed themselves. The shliach did not remove himself. So heim oichlin mishalahem and vu oichel mishaloi. So far, so good. The fact that he was looking for and he shechted, the one that he found is a raya that he removed himself from the other. Now, the im ein yadua ezem nishchat rishain. We don't know which one happened first. Or sheshachtu shneim ka'achas. I just want to say something that there's a whole machlekes whether two things can happen at the same time or not. That Rambam paskins it can't. Shachtu shneim ka'achas means since even it looked like it happened at the same time, but one was a millisecond before the other, and we don't know. So we don't know. Again, we don't know which one came first. So listen to what happens. Guys, you have to help up. Who oichla mishaloi? Why, guys? Let me add the words mimanavshach. Because we said mimanavshach, if his came first, then everyone should eat from his. Even if his came second, we just said he still eats from his. So he's covered. Because we don't know, you understand? If theirs was slaughtered first, then they cannot eat with him. And you chop it. So therefore, and here, the Rambam adds words that will explain it once, and the Rambam is going to repeat it again, and it will have to be explained. No, guys, now, do they have to bring a Pesach Sheni or not?
No, because they were on the first one also.
Okay. So the Rambam, when he writes Upeturin Belasa is Pesach Sheni, Peturin Belasa is Pesach Sheni is only if the Shas Hazrika they knew. Because the Rambam Paskin in Halacha Beis that if the Shas Hazrika, because of a suffix, no one was allowed to eat it, and there's a rule that a Pesach is only brought for it to be eaten. And if a B'Shas Zrika, then already was not shaykh for it to be eaten, that Rambam Paskin, they have to bring a Pesach Sheni. So that's a stira. So the Noisei Kalim add that whenever the Rambam writes Upeturim Alasas Pesach Sheni, and we're going to have this two more times, the Rambam is relying on that which he said in Gimel. So this must mean, Yaakov, that here they knew B'Shas Zrika which one was slaughtered first. They knew. It must be. And then they forgot. So de facto, they can't eat it. But since there was knowledge, b'shas rika, that's why the pater to make Pesach Sheni.
It's different. You have a suffix where they are included in the first.
We have to add that. In other words, if because of that suffix, if there was always a suffix, which is the way it sounds, then they're never allowed to eat it. He can eat his. They have a doubt. We know that it could be they could, but since they de facto, the din will be they can't eat it, they should be chayv to make a Pesach Sheni. Whenever the Rambam writes Pesach Sheni Yaakov, that's you'll see everyone says that. That's a new case, that they knew which one came first. They knew that. So they're going to be one with the others. And then they forgot, so de facto they can't eat. But since B'Shas Zrika, they knew that's when it's Peturim. Next, halacha. Now here we're speaking about the Amar Lahem. So again, we were beginning with halacha dalet. So there's a group. There was an animal. The animal was lost. They tell Reuven, do me a favor. You're good. You find the animal unshechted. Now Amar Lahem, guys, goes the shliach Reuven. Amar Lahem zes shalachu levak shepes revel. Reuven tells the group back, I'm going to look for it. But he was afraid that they might not find the animal. So he tells his chevra, im echarti, if I'm not going to come back up until whatever, 4 p.m., shachtu alayatem. You understand? Now, what did he do with that statement? Shachtu alayatem means that up until a certain point, I'm not connected to the first animal. I want to be enumerated in the new animal. Now, Reuven actually succeeded in finding the original animal, and he brought it. They also got nervous. Reuven was not coming back, and they bought another animal, a substitute animal, and they shechted it. So im shalahem nishchat rishain. If theirs came first, he told them, include me in yours. So that's good. So heim oichlin mishalahem, and v'hu oichel imahem. He eats with them. And the second one had no menuyin. So then you have to burn it. Ve'im shaloi nishchat rishain. Now chavra halka. Hu oichel mishaloi. Why hu oichel mishaloi? Because this came first. He only told them, right, his act of shechting his is the way that he removed himself from the others. The second one wasn't slaughtered yet. You can count yourself in and you can count yourself out prior to shechit. Hey, why do they eat theirs? It's almost like before in the reverse. The fact that they actually bought another carbon is their way of saying through their actions, we gave up on you. Okay. Now it's the same thing. So now it's the same in the other direction. They eat from theirs, like we explained in Mimanavshach. Because he has a doubt. Now, let me add the same thing. And if there was a doubt from the whole time then he's chayiv to bring a Pesach Sheni. That's the way everyone is saying. But if at least during the Shechita it was known which one came first, and later you forgot, then upatam alas is a Pesach Sheni. Halacha vav. Avalam Pesach. Avad loy Pesach. So a group's Pesach was lost. Group had a Pesach and the animal was lost. There was an individual that had another Pesach. He lost his Pesach. For Omar Lohem, it's funny. Imagine, Yaakov, imagine your group and I'm a Yachid. So you had a Pesach and you lost it in this neighborhood. I live in this neighborhood. My animal was lost up in your neighborhood. So the Yachid tells the group, listen, you look for my animal. Omar Lohem. The individual tells the group, and let me add something. And if you find yours, have me in mind, that's what you have to add over here. And if you find yours, have me in mind. And they told the Yachid, listen, stay our animal was lost in your neighborhood. Go find it. And again, and each one is basically saying that I'm going to be included in yours. So there's two animals, group and a Yachid. Each one is looking for the other one. And they both succeeded. So the din is, that's going to be the rule. Whenever I am actively counted in two animals, so oichel kulam in arishayin, whichever one was, and ba'asheni yisarev, sheni yisarev, because the second one had no ba'olim, had no menuyim. V'im ein yodua ezen ishchat chila, or they were slaughtered together. Again, slaughtered together means halachically we don't say that two things can happen together. That means one came prior to the other. We human beings don't know how to discern that. So now we have a safek, shneim yisarfu, because since no one knows it can be eaten, an animal that cannot be eaten, even though we know one of them was for everyone, but we don't know, it can be eaten. If it can be eaten, it's not good. Now, again, you have to add for the final time. If they never knew, then the chayv to make a Pesach Sheni. If b'shas rika they knew and then they forgot, that's where you are. Pesach Sheni. Now Atkan was, they both succeeded. He went to look, and he went to look for their animal. They went to look for his animal. But no one told the other, if you find it, have me in mind. It's known, or they knew that they had it in mind, or even if there was a hint to that. It was understood from the way they conversed that each one was saying, oh, we're both in the same boat. Well, go look and find, meaning if you find yours, please have me count me in. So at least here it's very simple halacha. Whichever one was found, if we know at the end it was brought for the original minuyev, the zel. So it could even be that the yachid that found the group's animal, he did the work, he brought it, he didn't get the mitzvah because it was only brought for them. Okay, halacha zay. What a peirik. Shtei chaburos. Now it's a new type of mix-up. Now the new mix-up is you have two groups. Every group has an animal. The animals got mixed up. Shtei chaburos shenesav eschem kodim sheishchatu. Chabura zu loichen keves echad min ataroives. Vashniya loichen hasheni. Each one takes one of the animals. Now you have a doubt whether it's yours, whether it's not. The echad mibnei chabura. You have to understand something. You can't say, like guys, what did we learn? I'll give you an example, just a contrast to appreciate. When there's two chatois, I sin and someone else their sin. And both of our chatois got mixed up. We learned in the previous in Psula Mikdashim or someplace in Sefer Avodah. No problem. The Kohen brings both karbanis, and he says whichever one, for whichever one. It's not a problem. Here you have to eat it. Here you don't know if you're not counted in, you can't eat it. If a korban pesach is slaughtered and it cannot be eaten from the outset, the whole thing is invalid. Now there's another rule. The other rule is, why don't you say, I have a simple solution. Take a new animal, take an animal of the two Dani, make new groups. It's before Shechita. So now comes into the final nuance. And that is that even though we learned yesterday that if I was counted in on an animal, I can count myself out before the shechita, you need to have at least one guy from the original minuyim that remains in that animal. That's what we have to cover. So you can't just say, okay, let's go back to the same groups. Now I'm counted in on this animal. No, if we got the wrong animal, we can't all remove ourselves from the original animal. You can't do that. So what do you do? So every group takes an animal. Now you have one exchange. And now, so now we have in each group, there's for sure at least one guy that's connected to his animal. Notice we know who the groups are, Danny. We just don't know which animal belongs to whom. So the groups stay as groups. Each group takes any one of the two animals. One Bnei HaChabura goes to the other group, and one from that group comes to this group. And they say, doesn't matter, but you have since you mix the Bnei HaChabura, you have to have now an exchange from the Chaburais. Every animal has either almost everyone or at least one from the original one. And now they say that they have to make the statement that if this was originally ours, then they have someone new here with them. So then you now denounce your count and connect over here. And if this animal, but at least you're one original minuya. So Yodenu Meshuchais Mishalanu, we will all remove ourselves and count in over here. What you got here is that there's at least one member that was originally on this animal, which is what you need. And therefore, with the numbers, if there were 5 groups, if every group had 5 people, it's still doable. Because then you have to break up the groups, but you have at least one member which was originally in the same place. Or if there were 10 groups, each one of 10. As long as that matches. So you're really forming new chaburas. In other words, you have to have enough numbers to allow at least one to remain on the original group. Here you have a problem. Problem is that you had one person for one animal. And the animals got mixed up. One person per animal. Now what do? You don't have one remaining. If each one will just take an animal, maybe you got yours, maybe you didn't get yours. The Rambam says it's also not a problem. Because prior to doing anything, add someone with you. Even though at that point you don't know who the animal belongs to, you don't know which animal belongs to you, doesn't matter. Invite someone else. I had an animal, from these 2 animals, one is mine, come join me. The other guy also adds another person with him. So now you have 2 people in every chabura. Now you go back to the original solution. Each one takes an animal. And now, which one is it? I don't know, Danny. I don't care. I know I have one animal amongst the 2. I'm going to add a new person. Now, you understand? Now we have 2 people in every group. Now you do what we did before. That's also okay. In other words, when you have 2 people, it's not that the guy that remains has to be the original guy. They were part of the group. And that's the way you make sure you don't lose any of these animals. Final halacha tes chamisha shenes arvu. When you have 5, chamisha shenes arvu oires b'scheim. That doesn't matter. That's only a financial issue. Financial issue, who cares? No. On the oir, you find the yabelas. Now, where we learned, guys, in Psuli Hamukdashim, that a wart, certain type of wart, invalidates the animal. What's after the whole thing, we discovered Oigavalt, one animal was a Balmum. Now, if we would know it's from our animal, we would bring another one. Or we would know, we have to bring a Pesach Sheni. Now, it was one of the 5. What do you do over here? So first of all, Yetzu, kulam yetzu lebeis hasreifa. In other words, when you look at the animal, you can't eat the animal because every animal might be a balmum. Here we don't go by roiv. Now the nisar b'kodim zrikas daman. It's even worse that we already learned today. Chayav alasas pesach sheni, because you need to have b'shas zrika roy lachila. If it happened after the zrika, it's amazing. Even though now you have to burn it, but the din will be different. Now listen to this logic, guys. I know it's getting late, but this every halach here is a mountain. Guys, all of them are exempt from making Pesach Sheni. Because since 4 out of the 5 are oyam lachila, b'shazrika, since 4 of the 5 are good b'shazrika, only one of them is invalid. You can't be machayiv every group because of that such a suffix. Every animal has to be burnt. Every Jew fulfilled his obligation. And it's more than that. What are you going to do? You're going to be machayiv, be machmer? No, then you bring chol lazar. Now, the Rambam is going to write that no solution will be effective over here. So you have to rely on the roiv to say they were yoitz. No, if you would have a solution, then you would be machmer. But you can't be machmer. Because first of all, it's time to bring chol lazar. Meaning, very good. So if it comes to Pesach Sheni Dani, every group will include themselves in someone else's Pesach Sheni. So even if they are all put in, but that Pesach that was on Cholam Bazar.
Not all.
One, so someone is chayiv. No, that's also not good. Oh, so that's not good. Nimsa nishchat shaloi lemechuyav. No. If they're not going to add people. One second. Im nimnu kol pesach echad. Yeah. Because if they're all going to include themselves on one animal, all of them, Danny, all of them, you had 5 groups. Right? I'm sorry, you had 5 groups. Every group was 5 people. Take all the 25 people, that's the word, and bring a Pesach Sheni. That's good. Because 4 of the 5 groups are part, at least one entire group. He's saying all of them should bring it together. Why is that not a solution? That's not a solution. Because nimsa nishchat shaloi lemechuyav v'zeh kemish nishchat shaloi lemenuyav. Why?
They were already yotzeh.
Because based on the rule that all of them are yotzeh. You have to have this. Okay. One animal was not kosher. So first, min hadin, since no one knows which one it is, then every group, the din will be meikir adin, that they are exempted. They're the roif. If you want to be machmer and you want to say bring for all the group, no, it's also not good, because since min hadin they are all exempt. Because since you don't know which one was the bad one, and they are in the minority, so every group is judged by themselves. So since they are all meikar adin pater, it doesn't help to include everyone.
Why does it make a difference before Zrika after Zrika?
No. If why does it matter? Because if b'shah Zrika, nothing was mixed up yet, so the act of Zrika was okay. If you don't even know B'shah Zrika, that means if there was a problem B'shah Zrika, then something else. Then everyone is chayv to bring a Pesach Sheni, because any korban Pesach that can never be eaten is invalid. That's the word. But eating, you can't eat it. But if B'shah Zrika, it was then edible, so every group is exempt, you can't add them all together. How about doing that? You can't even do that.
4 of the 5, right?
Yeah, because dama pesach b'shvicha v'dama shlam b'zrika. Another din v'anitana b'zrika le'yitanois b'shvicha lechatchila. Even though b'di'evid you're good. So in other words, there's no way of being machmer So you rely on the Ikar Adin, which is that as long as B'Shas Zrika, Gavaldik, there was no mix-up yet, every group can say ours was good.
They eat it.
No, not allowed to eat it. Eating, you can't eat it.
You see that?
Yeah. We already learned it on the Pedic. Okay, Chavra, let's move on. This Pedic was Gavaldik, Mamash Gavaldik. Now that we are all awake, now comes two very easy chapters. I'm the Seder of the Oibishter. Pedic Daled, we're going to go bring back a little bit of Machsheva Shaloi L'Shmai. We're going to learn what happens if a Pesach becomes Tameh. And we're going to have again this basic klal that she'ein ha-Pesach bo elola achila. We will learn that when it comes to a carbon Pesach that's invalid, sometimes you can burn it right away. Other times the halacha will say, can't eat it, but you have to wait until it becomes ta'avad su'urasai. And why? And the Rambam is going to give you the words, kol shepsulei begufai yisaref miyad. And if the psul is not in the goof of the animal, but there's exterior reasons, even though it cannot be eaten, you have to wait for the animal itself to become noisar. And we're going to have many other rules that are based on the fact that a Pesach that's not brought on the right time, or it cannot be brought, will become a carbon shlamim. Perek Dalet has 11 halachas. The other one had 9, but these 11, let's go flying. Halacha Aleph. We learned in Perek Tesvav of Psuli HaMikdashim Shapesach Einoi Nishchat Elo L'Shem Pesach U'L'Shem Ba'al. That Pesach and Chatos, the first Mishnah and Zvachim are the exceptions. That if you make a shinui L'Shmai, not only is it Loi Olu L'Ba'alim, it becomes Mamish Pasal. Now, the Im Shechati B'Machshav Shinui Hashem, it becomes Pasal. Says now remember that. He already slaughtered it. And he tells the group later means after they already ate the carbon. You should know. Guys, we already learned this from Shalom Ekdashim. Now there's a big rule. If the meat is here in front of us, the person who says, I did it Shaloi L'Shmoi, in the cases which is only Chatas and Pesach that it's possible, he would not lie because that would make the meat be burnt wrongfully. No one would do that sin. Here they ate it up already. It's after it was eaten up. Now the guy is saying, I want you to know that whatever was done was not done properly. So here the halacha is, if they trust this person, then if they don't know who this guy is, they don't trust him, or they know he's not a trustworthy person for them. And here, just a contrast, now that we're learning 3 Prakam of Rambam, a contrast, this was what we learned at the end in Halacha Tes. In other words, if Me'ikar Adin you are potted, sometimes to say to be Machmir, you're bringing Chul Nazara. Here the pshat is that once they say, we trust you, then they're mechuyev to bring a Pesach Sheni, Me'ikar Adin. You understand? We have something al derech zeh by Yochasoita. God forbid if a woman says that she committed adultery, if she's Neman, I know there's no Chul Nazara aspect, but there's a certain area where do you believe her or do you not believe her? And you're believing her or not will change the halacha. Halacha base. Psara Pesach. Shenitma, we needed the extra 5 minutes, but let's make it up. Psara Pesach, Shenitma, guys, there's the person and there's the meat. Don't confuse them. If the meat of the Pesach became Tomei before Zrika, even though they muram arta hoidim, number one, Yizrak Adam, right? Because, like we keep on mentioning, that ain't Pesach ba'el lachila, she'ein a Pesach ba'el lachila. And even post facto, just to make a contrast by other karbanos, we do not say that. If the Zrika Saddam is a matir, even if it was not matir the basa, only matir the emurim, then that the person fulfilled their obligation. Not so by Pesach. Achila is ma'akeves, or at least the potential. And therefore, you chayiv to bring a Pesach Sheni. That's a machlekes. Now, im loy noida loy achen is a kadam. Don't forget, guys, what about the tzitz maratza? Yeah, we only say that by a carbon yachad b'diavad. So they made the zrika. Now you discovered, not that the basar became tamei after zrika. No, that the basar was always tamei. Doesn't matter anymore. Tzitz maratza al shikas avas shenitma. But the Einivaratz Allah Zodim. Now, Nitma Mitzasivarim. So then, if only some became tamei, that's okay. Also good. Also okay. So since it's all about achilas ba'alim, even lechatchila, you know the emurim cannot be burnt. You fulfilled the carbon pesach. You had tzedikah, and now you have achila. What happens if he became tamei? The owner became tamei. All of the ba'alim, not the basar. It's different. That means they can't eat it. If it happened after shchita, lo yizrak asadam. I'll tell you better. Let me just add a nuance. If they became tamei, before the shchita, then you can't shecht it. Chiddush is here. You already shechted. If you already shechted it, no, you can't. The zrika has to be mated for it to be eaten. Im zorak lo yortza. And therefore, another detail. Even, it's even b'shoigig. It's only meratza either for basar or for that unique tumah called tumas time. We don't have time to repeat what that means. It's a unique type of tumas mace. And that disqualifies it. Okay, psul yoitze. We're speaking about after shchita. The din is yisaref miyad. What is the emphasis? You don't have to wait until it becomes noisa, like we mentioned. Even when the animal has to be burnt, you'll see sometimes ta'avur tzurase, sometimes yisaref miyad. Here yisaref miyad. Nitmu haba'olim, if the owners became tamei or mesum.
Yisaref miyad. You have to kill it first, right?
No, for sure. No, we're speaking when the shchita happened. Well, the shchita happened. Yeah. No, it's prior to Zedek. Now, or Mesu means that they died before Shchita. Now, you only found out later. But there was no Minuya. All of them joined other groups. It can mamish happen. Especially if the Shliach is just doing the Shchita. Everyone found another group. And before the Shchita, you can be Moshe Chideyim. I feel it my Mesu Kedem Zrika Saddam. So it's geferlich, right? No, manichin oiseyach taver tzorosei. Here you, of course, it's invalid, but you can't burn it right away. Why? Says that Rambam Zaklal. Kol shapsule b'gufa. In other words, nitma habasa means that you understand the animal became tummy, the meat became tummy. Then you sort of miyad. Let me tell you why you need taver tzorosei. There is a concept called bizoin kachin. There's no bizoin kachin. The meat became tummy. You understand? But badoma b'ba'olim. That's not called begufay. Then to avot tzorasa, only then you saref. And lefikach im shechatei achar shenoy de shemosh chabal mesedeim. If they knew that there was no minuyov, oy meisu. The Rambam says, if they knew there was no minuyim, that's called begufay. Oy nitmeu benitchul pesach sheni. If all that was known, Danny, prior to the shchita, that's even though it's not a tum on the animal, but if that was known prior to shchita, that's called the psul beguf. Yeah, it's beautiful. Or the Rambam gives a cloud. Then he's telling you exceptions that without learning Torah, you might have thought otherwise. This is also halachically called a psul begufay. Even here, so everyone got their chelik. Now, guys, the Rambam is saying, Kol Shchein, I want to add, if the Tohoidim began and the Tomeim did not begin, Avada, it's good. But even in the other direction, there was Zoicha and the animal is good for the Tohoidim. Avalim is Chilu Kulam, Venitmo Miksasan, if all of them began to eat, and then some of them became Tomei, Lizochu Tohoidim Mechalkam Shol Tomeim. Now, doesn't mean that the Tohoidim lost out. No. The Tohoidim eat their Chalkam. And the chelik that was already given to the tameim has to be burnt.
You don't have to finish it.
They're not allowed to finish it. And again, if they became tamei,
you don't go to their plates and start
if they became tamei ta'avar tzurasam, if the meat became same, then you burn it right away. Wadin imeisu miksas. In other words, once they already began to eat, then it's theirs. And then if there's a problem, okay, then it's a problem. If the entire animal of the animal became tamei. So there's another detail. Sorry for an oisan lefnei abir lefnei hakoil. You burn it in public. How can it be that roif? Another detail. In other words, let me say it like this. Whenever people, just on how it works, whenever people bring their own wood to burn psuli amudashim, they have the right, if there's any wood left over, to take it home. Problem is that sometimes when you do something of burning in public, like this has to be done in public, the observers don't know that they brought their own wood. So and they might think that they're taking wood from kachim. So you know how you salvage it? You say, use wood ma'atzei amaracha. Then no one will take it home. So they won't create the marasai. But if they're bringing their own kashu kanim doesn't belong to the temple. The Beis Hamikdash has this gavaldik woods. So now if you're using fuel that you know doesn't belong to the Beis Hamikdash, then they are allowed to burn it from their own. And it's not shayich a chashash of marasai. Everyone will know that they're taking their own kash. The Beis Hamikdash doesn't own it. But the point is that you shame them by burning it in public. If only some of it became tamei or some of it was left over, then you don't have to shame them. Why not? Here's punkt verkehrt. Why not? Because if they would be allowed to use atzei hamaracha, they might make a mistake and use those eitzim for themselves and not return it, and then they'll be chayiv me'ilam. So you have to always know what wood do you use, and each one yesh bozeh ma she'ein bozeh. Halacha dal. Hamafresh nekevel lepischoi. Pesach has to be male. You separated the female or a male, but it was then shtei shanim, never 13th month. That's a palgus. We're speaking about 14th month and on. So now yira achifol by mum, the animal has to be left to graze, and when it gets a blemish, yimacher v'yami v'dam of Pesach. Now ve'im loy nafal b'mum achihikra pischoi. That animal has to get blemished. Now we begin to learn. So since it cannot be brought as a Pesach, it has to be brought as a Shlamim. Halacha hifresh pischoi v'meis. Now, obviously, guys, there are no other minuyim. If there's other minuyim, I don't care. Let's go back. Person, he separated an animal, little animal. He can eat it by himself. It's okay. And then he died. Lo yiviyenu b'nei achrav l'shem Pesach. Because there's no minuyim. Right? If someone passes away and they leave a carbon oil, the Yarshim bring it as an oil. Chatas is a problem. I forget, it's one of the Machatois HaMesas. But this Pesach cannot be brought because there's no menuyav. You're not chayiv. It does become, and they should bring it l'shem shlamim. But if he and his father were on that animal, then yiviyenu l'shem Pesach. It's not a Pesach shemesu ba'olav. It's only mixas ba'olav. What do you mean? Then you bring it. And I'll tell you, he is from the original Minoim. And if the guy says, I can't eat it by myself, bring in other people. That's what we learned in the last chapter. As long as you have to have some of the originals in there, then you can add prior to Shechit. You just can't change completely. That he can bring it L'Shem Pesach if he was originally Memunad in Kishameis Aviv Acher Chatzois Arba Asar. When his father passed away after Chatzois, you have to remember something else. His father died on that day before Chatzois. Right, that's what we keep on learning. Aninos is only that day. So then, there was never a Chalois Chiyuv on this person, anointed. And therefore, he's Nitchala Pesach. Where we have Pesach Sheni. Masha'enken, if his father dies after Chatzois, since Bisman, the chiyuv of Karban Pesach, he was mechoyev even for 1 second. Then his father passed away. Again, aninus, which cannot eat kachim, was only during the aninus midoraisa. At night he can eat it. At night he can eat it. You only eat it at night anyways. Since he was mechoyev, then you take a bring it. Halachavav. If someone lost this Pesach and then they found it, but when they found it, he already designated another animal. In the case where both animals are available, so the halacha will be, again, this concept that Pesach is connected to a shlamim. Bring anyone you want l'shem Pesach, and the other one will be brought as a shlam. But if matzoi achar sheshachat pischai, then you don't get to pick and choose. Same halacha still remains. Harei yikrav shlamim. Now, v'chein, he lost an animal, guys. He designated another animal. And now he made a tamura on the animal that he found. But he found it after he brought the guys. I had animal number 1, I lost it. I designated animal number 2. I brought animal number 2 for Pesach. Now I found animal number 1. What did we say? Shlamim. If I make this into a tamura, since it became a shlamim, how is it taken of shlamim? If you remember in the Gemara, what was that sugya? The question is, when a Pesach becomes a shlamim, is it something that you have to do? Do you have to make it, or does it happen automatically? And I think the vart here is, it happens automatically. So since I bought the new one, now I found the original one, it cannot be brought l'shem Pesach. It's already a shlamim. So if I make zu tmura zu, the other one is also a shlamim. But if in the first case of halacha vav, you understand, you lost one, you designated number 2, you found number 1. Now both animals are in front of you. Yeah, I know that. Now, what happens if you say tmura? You take a third animal and you say, this one is tmura zu. What is the zu? What is the zu? It's not clear yet. Animsa is the original one, guys. You know why? Because this animal is connected to 2 kedushas. This animal is connected to 2 kedushas. You know how ironic this is? The koyach of tamura, which we're going to learn a whole series of tamura, is a big koyach, and it's a sin. I'm not allowed to make a tamura. But you know why it's effective? Because the original animal is a chatos. It's something. It's an oila. If this animal is connected to 2, it makes it weaker. We don't even know what it is yet. So an animal that is not, it's one or the other, doesn't have enough koyach to affect the tamura. Ella, what should you do? Tira achiva v'mum. It's not that this animal is garnished with nish. This animal cannot be brought. You have to wait until it gets blemished. The other way, the mel shlamim. Halacha zayin. Pesach she'avra shenasai. By the time out of Pesach came, it was already in its 2nd year. And we learned we count not only miyom liyom, we learned we counted mishah al shah. Or shlamim haboyim machmas Pesach, like we just had Tmuras Pesach. Hareim kishlamim l'chol davar. They are mamash shlamim. It's not like I make up. Meaning Pesach doesn't have nesachim. No, it comes with this to unam smicha, which you don't have to have by a Pesach, and nesachim, and you have to have the chazay and the shoik. None of this is in Pesach. Okay. Halacha ches. Pesach she'nesarav b'shlamim. You don't know which animal is which animal. What do? Yikravu kulam shlamim. That's your solution. Now, guys, the chevra will have to be memana, another animal for Pesach. That's fine. But since there is this link between a Pesach and the shlamim, it's not an issue of a mixture. Make it all shlamim. The sort of this like, for example, I just want to say an asham can be male. Oila can be male. You have to remember that. In other words, and they can be ben shana. So you can have a oila, and now you have a Pesach, and they got mixed one with the other. So Pesach and shlamim, I have no problem. Pesach and oila, I got a problem. What do you do? Near yiru achibamu. We're speaking about both of them. The yavi b'dmei hayav minzeh ub'dmei havashem shlamim. We already have this concept. No, one is more valuable. You got to use all of the money of one to get its replacement. You don't know which one was the more expensive one. You have to be machman on both ends. Or you're going to be out of pocket. You're going to be losing money. As we learned from Sulam Ekdosh and Perek Vav. Now, if a Pesach got mixed with a Bechar, Yiru HaKoil Achipol Behemum. People argue, Mela, I get it by Pesach and an Oila, different than the Sina Saddam. Pesach is B'shvicha, Shvicha Achas. Oila, Shtayim Shenaber. A Pesach and a Bechor and a Maisa, Behema, are the same by the Domin. But there are many other issues. Many other issues is, Bechor Nachalak Lekahana. Limits. Pesach is for all of the Menuya. Pesach is only Nachal for a smaller amount of time. A Bechor can be eaten for one day and one night. And based on the rules that you cannot bring a carbon or base of sul, and you cannot change its amount of people. You cannot limit its eating. So here you got a problem also. So here also, Yiru HaKadosh Balmum. And V'yei ochlu kebechor balmum. The Yavi behema shehi yafa kayafa Shabbat harayves v'yoymar kol makim shua Pesach takol kadoshasi alzu. And that animal has to be brought as a shlamim. Wow. Halacha 9. Hifresh pischay achaloy nisgayev v'nisgayev. Or achaloy nishtachar v'nishtachar. When you designated the animal, you were not mechuyev b'davar. Or you were not a adult. And even though we learned bifedish in the first chapter, that you can count in a katan, I get it. But a katan is not mechuyev. So imagine, David, a katan, or someone halachically, he can be 13, but he doesn't have the two sa'aris, designated an animal. And then when it was brought, he was then mechuyev. Hevi, harei ze makriv l'shem Pesach. Why? She'ein balei chayim nidachem k'mei sherav b'lo mikdashim. When he designated the animal, it was not a good designation. If we would have subscribed to balei chayim nidachem, then we can argue this animal was already ruled out at that time. You cannot re-include it. But since ein balei chayim nidachem, why do I care that the original hafrasha was not okay? Now it's okay. Now that he's shechting it, he's an adult. So it's like a new hafrasha. Hamafresh mois lepischai. And the hoisiru, again, based on this shidduch, this connection between Pesach and Shlamim, hamoiser, right? Moiser, Pesach will automatically be for Shlamim. Hamamana, chedam al pischai ve'al chagi gosoi. Harei amoy sheyikach mehem bechelkom. Is chulin. Why is that? Guys, see, money is different. If I take from you money, David, and the money is for my karbanos, so the kedusha of the money that you gave is nischalel on the animals that I bought. And now the money is chulin. Now he's asking a gavaldik kasha. For you to be machalal ma'os, how does it work? And same thing chagiga. If I have something that's kodesh and chulin, we learned that yesterday also. We learned that yesterday when we're speaking about how you pay the wages to the workers. I cannot take the kedusha of this on something that's already kodesh. So the Rambam is asking a bomb question. Let's say we bought a Pesach. Our Pesach was already bought. So other guys give money. They want to be nimna on that. Okay, I get it. They're in. But their money, for it to become chulin, it only works, if the animal would have been chulin, the money would have been kodesh, this money is for Pesach. So then there's a chilul, the kedusha goes out of the money and it goes into the animal. But if I already bought my animal and I'm getting more people to be included, or I bought my chagiga, as we're going to learn in Ilchas Chagiga, and more people are getting included, how does the money go out l'chulin?
You can't take it and
It's being mischalal on what? On something that's already holy. Maybe if everyone does it prior, that's the whole word, that people can count themselves in. So,
Prior to which point?
If prior to buying the animal is not a problem, because then the animal is chulin, and we take the bank of money from everyone, the pile of money. I have a pruta, you have a pruta, and we buy. That's good. But once the animal was bought, and people can still give money for that, and the tle was already designated. The tle was already that means the tle is already holy. The money that you gave to be joining our group, that money, when you said this money is for Pesach, the money is holy. And that's an exception. And it's called Sha'almanas Kein Igdishu Yisrael Peschavis Chayagos. In other words, if we are a group and we bought a Pesach, what we are basically saying, without even needing to say it, we're leaving room in this animal available to be able to be machalel holy money. Normally it doesn't work that way, but that's a condition they made. If not, it would be almost impossible. Well, it would be possible if everyone joins. The point is that we're saying shechita is the time. Prior to shechita, more people can buy in. That's the only way it can work. Prior to shechita means we already own the animal. The animal was already designated. Even if the animal was designated, it works. Final halacha yud aleph, eitzim shel tzliyas haPesach has a din to the Pesach itself. V'chein matzah u'maror, hoyel v'hein machshirei Pesach, Hareim kepesach. What are we talking about? Explains the Rambam. Therefore, im lakach mima ois ha-pesach, memishim min ois ha-imoy, kedei leman ois ha-imoy, mamatzah amarolias, leichel beitz ha-nishotzelem, same thing. Harei hama ois chulin. Now think about that. If you have ma'ois, you have to chap on. This is the same idea in the opposite direction. If I have money that's holy and I'm buying something that's chulin, okay, it works. It works, meaning the money has on what to be mischalal itself, but that thing becomes holy. Matzah is not holy. Mutter is not holy. If someone designates money for the Pesach, first of all, you can use that money to buy matzah and mutter and to buy the wood. But make no mistake, that matzah and mutter is not holy. So now you can also ask a question. So where did the kedusha of the money go? It went on the carbon paste. It went on the animal. The animal was holy. That was halacha yud. That's the way the animal has room in it of chulin, even though if no one else joins, it's going to be fully kodesh. The animal is continuously going to be used to get the kedusha of what's being given, and and even though if the guy is saying, listen, we have to still buy matzah and mutter, I'm using your money to buy the matzah and mutter. The money was neschal on the behema, and then the matzah and mutter, and everyone joins the group. No, that was the system that's unique by a carbon pesach.
Did they always do it?
That's how people did it. No, it's until you did the shechita, you had people joining and giving money, even money that was holy, and everything is fine. But all the questions you asked yesterday is going to be, I think, the last chapter. Everything is Gavaldik. It's a Seder. Now, the third chapter for today, we have to get moving. The fifth chapter is all about Pesach Sheni. So it's like we had Pei Krishna. It's going to be the basics din of Pesach Sheni. Here we're going to have the famous din about the Gershon Esgair between Pesach Krishna and Pesach Sheni. Katan Shen Esgair, Machloikas Tanoim, the Rambam Paskins that we don't consider Pesach Sheni Tashlum and Larishan. It's considered a chiyuv b'fnei atzmai with a lot of nuance. So that's why if the father was mamana the cotton which now became an adult will be potter from Pesach Sheni, even though the Rambam does not consider Pesach Sheni Tashlum and Larishan. So he's chayiv to bring it because it's a new Pesach, but he can exempt himself even though he was a minor. That's they're very spoken about the Rambam. Perikei has 9 halachas. It's relatively, we'll make it short because we have to finish it. Halacha al Mishra Yotami. This is the guys you read the Chumash Parshas Vaha Alois Chan, one of these mitzvahs that it's so clear in the Torah. Someone is Tamei b'shashchit, and that was what we learned also. Tamei cannot bring a carbon pesach. Cannot bring it because if I want to bring an oil and I'm Tamei, I have no problem. I don't have to go to the Azara. You can bring it on my behalf. Pesach is brought for it to be eaten. Tamei person midoiraisa, right? Cannot eat, so you cannot bring it for him. Someone is Tamei. Or he's derech rechoika, as the Rambam will define how far away from Yerushalayim. By the way, it's not how far away from the Azara. It's how far away from Yerushalayim. Oy nenas v'oy nesacher. Oy sheshagag. Guys, make no mistake. If someone b'mezid did not bring Pesach Rishon, they will have to bring Pesach Sheni. Just giving a heads up. The Rambam is separating it, as we'll see in a moment. So Atkan, that's the normal case. He couldn't. And he didn't bring Barishain, Hareze, Shoichet, Pesach, Ba'arba, Asa, Sholchayt, Shosheni, Ben Arba. And at Mamish, it's the same date, the next month. And by the way, you bring it on the 14th. Same thing, you can't eat it on the 14th. You can only eat it on the night of the 15th. It's all of the dinner. We'll see, same day. Shchitas Pesach says, Mitzvahs asay bifnei atzma. The Rama means with this, as we'll see again and again and again, it's not Tashlum and L'Rishain. Like we're going to learn in the next segment, I'm chayv to bring a carbon oil asrei on the first day of Yom Tov. And if I did not bring it on the first day of Yom Tov, bring it on the second day. But it's a chiyuv. No, it's a separate mitzvah. And it's so powerful that it's doich Shabbos. She'ein hasheni tashlum and l'rishon. Remember this. Ela regel b'fnei atzmai. Lefika chayav and olav kares. Now, if we would have more time, just to know that this line has to be so defined, as we'll see in a moment. He's saying that if you don't bring the carbon Pesach Sheni, you'll be chayiv kares. So like something, and if Pesach Sheni would be tashlum and l'rishon, then you would also be chayiv kares for Pesach Rishon. So there's a lot of nuance in this. Let's keep on going. Now, Ketzat, Misha Shagag, Oy Benas, Oiger V'Rishain. Now listen to this, guys. Im hazed v'lehikrev b'sheni, then the chayv kares. But on the other hand, im shoga genenas ap b'sheni der pater, because you can't be machayv someone kares if everything was an oinus. Now you understand why the Rambam began only by speaking about someone who did not bring Pesach Rishon beheter. If someone b'mezid didn't bring Pesach Rishon, they can also bring Pesach Sheni. But what happens if by Pesach Sheni there were oinus? They'll be chayv kares. That's what it is. Hey, is it v'leikere yes, you can bring it b'sheni. And you know what? And if you bring it b'sheni, you won't be chayv kares because you made it up. But ve'im loy hikrev b'sheni, here's the word. Even though b'sheni you were a shoygeg, but you didn't bring the rishon. Harei ze chayv kares. Shaharei loy hikrev karban Hashem b'mayadoi v'hoya mezid. So the chayv kares is for the fact that you didn't bring the first. By the way, all of this is easier to chap if it's tashlum and l'rishon. Here the word is even though it's a standalone mitzvah, but it's a standalone mitzvah that exempts you from the other mitzvah. And they didn't bring the Pesach Rishon, even if God forbid they were mezid b'sheni. Ein a chayv kares. You have to understand the chiddush of the Rambam. No, this fits a lot easier, Danny, if Pesach Sheni is Tashlum and L'Rishon. Then it will be easy to chap it. The Rambam is saying this, even though Pesach Rishon is a b'fnei atzma. And Afal Pisha Hazed B'Sheni, Ein a chayv kares, Shekvar Niftar B'Pesach Rishon and a kares. Even though it's a mitzvah b'fnei atzma. But the severity of kares is only if you are chayv kares for the Rishon. Okay, halacha gimel. Huh?
If you're honest on the first one or derech on the first one.
Same thing.
The beginning of the base is nenas, rishon, easy b'sheni, chayv kares.
No. Everyone is saying chayv kares. No. You can't be chayv kares right away because you can make it up by sheni, even though it's not tashlumin. Before Pesach Sheni, no one is getting kares yet. Question is, what happens if by the sheni you didn't bring it because of a oinus or because of a shoygeg? If I was shogag b'rishon or nenas b'rishon, then if I'm shoygeg b'sheni, I won't be chayv kares. If I, God forbid, was a mezid b'rishon, I can make it up with a sheni. But now, even if it was a shoygeg b'sheni, I'll be chayv kares. Good. Halachim. Mishu b'derech rechoika. And still, v'shachatu v'zarko ala v'sadam. No, Shluchim did it. Afal pi shabala erev loy hurtza. Ad kedei kach. Loy hurtza. You cannot bring, and therefore you have to bring a Pesach Sheni. Halacha dal. Tomish yochal atar bePesach Rishon. Give you an example. A guy touches an avela. Guys, and now we can say in the next sefer. Taratz gavalik. So if a person is tummy nevela to make sheretz, what are they, guys? They're a rishon. All they need to do is to go to the mikvah and to eat kachim. They have to wait until night. Seder. No, it's what happens if on the day of the shechita you're tummy, but you will be allowed to eat it at night. And this guy did not go to the mikvah, and you can bring it. You can bring it for him. That's called amazing. And not, I'm sorry, I was tummy. I was an auto. No, you could have gotten out of it. See again, Dovi. That's l'mayin afkimina, if you're mezid b'rishon or not. That if b'sheni you were a shoygig, you will be chayv kares if you were mezid b'rishon. Chayv kares. Alachei. Shem shemilas atzmei ma'kevas oisim elas ois pesach. Another nuance about the importance of having a bris milah. If a person has a minor son prior to bar mitzvah, or if you own an eved, no matter how old they are, ben gedolim ben ketanim, how great is that? By a eved doesn't make a difference. By a son, Rabbi Zajac, it makes a difference, because if a person has a son to whom they wrongfully did not give a bris milah, once the son is bar mitzvah, then the chiyuv goes on the son. By a eved, no matter how old they are, ma'keves oisoi. Shenemar. Beautiful. Our obligation of doing the right thing for our family members. If you would not mal kol zachar doesn't only mean you. It means anyone that that you are chayv to be mal. Now same din af pesach pasal even b'diavad. I mean, no one. Another nuance. What about a woman slave? So the tefillah l'shem avdus there is like a bris milah. The af tefillas amoisa l'shem avdus ma'kebes oisoi. Even though it's not written in the Fedish, the Mepei Kabbalah is from oral tradition. Das was shatfila l'shvacha is kamila lavad halacha vav. Now hakatan, if a katan owns avadim, ein milas avadim tefillah shvachayis ma'kebes oisoi Pesach. He inherited, and the father was not mal, and he's a minor. He didn't do it either. And what did we learn in Pedek Rishon? That he could be counted in the Minuyim, the michsas nefashos, and not michsas anoshim. Shenemar v'chol evedish. So he's exempted from that. Now he has to have a bris milah. But if he owns an eved that is not yet gemalt, it's not mark him. Now this is the famous halakha. Everything should be famous, but I just know that in yeshivas, you have a whole, everyone should have learned this. And now, if not, we're learning it right now. Here is the paradox. That's the ground zero, Yaakov. If Pesach Sheni is Tashlum and L'Rishon David, Tashlum means that if I'm not Chayiv B'Rishon, I cannot be Chayiv in Sheni. And we're going to learn this in the next segment about, again, Oilas Re'iyah. If you were exempt on the first day, you cannot be chayiv on the second day because the second day is tashlumin. Since it's a standalone Yom Tov, chayav alas is Pesach Sheni. But here's the bomb issue. Im shachatu ala b'rishon pater. At first glance, it's very difficult to understand this because if there's a ged, there's a cotton. The cotton was not chayiv. I know that he can be counted in. If he was not, how can you exempt a chiyuv if you're not mechuyev b'davar? Okay, and we're saying Pesach Sheni is not Tashlum and L'Rishon. So you have a chiyuv when you became bar mitzvah. I don't know on the Lag BaOmer Chai BeIyar you became bar mitzvah. Now you're mechuyev to bring a Pesach Sheni. The fact that your father counted you in on Pesach Rishon or another group, you were not mechuyev. If you're not mechuyev, how can you exempt yourself? That's the big kasha. Okay, the Rebbe's approach, the Rebbe in Chelik Yud Zayin Kedoshim, Daled, my Rosh Yeshiva from Miami always spoke about this Sikha. It's a Moiridik Sikha. Shitasi, all the Rambams holds that since the Chiyuv of the father to be Mechanech his children, the Chiyuv of the father carries itself over to the minor, which is why the Rambam always uses the words Chayiv, Benigeh Cotton. I know it's only Midrabanan, but there's a certain amount of Chiyuv on the minor because the father has to be Mechanech him. That's the way it works. Let's go back. Halachiches. Noshim shenitchu l'sheni. And guys, make no mistake, women are obligated on Pesach Rishon. The michsas nefasha is not ish. Now, bein mepnei onis vashkoga, bein mepnei atuma, that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter why. Listen to this. Pesach Sheni is only rishus. Rotzu sheichatim, rotzu ein sheichatim. Lefikach ein sheichatim alein b'fnei atzman b'Shabbos v'Pesach Sheni. Interesting. B'choil, it's not chulun lazara. Just because they're not chayev, it doesn't mean it's nothing. But it's not doicha Shabbos. So you can't have on Shabbos a shechita only for women. Now, what's derech rechoika? Derech rechoika says the Rambam is 15 mil. A mil is around a kilometer. Any direction outside of Chaimais, not azara. Chaimis Yerushalayim. Halacha 9, the final. First one is a chiyuv for her. Chiyuv. That's it. That's the psukim. That's what God wants. He anoshim, right? I think that's what it begins in Ba'aloischa. He anoshim asher hoitmei lenefesh. Anoshim ish, not ish. By Pesach Rishon it says nefashos. That's what Chazal say. Okay, final halacha test. Me shahoya beinoi ubein Yerushalayim yoim arba asar im aliyas hashemesh. No, it's when we're saying derech rechoik, another good word. From when? From aliyas hashemesh. If it was chamisha asar milo yosef, that's derech rechoik. You know, all the shiurim is exact. Hoya beinoi bein parchas mizeh was 1 inch closer. Eino derech rechoik. That's the secret of 15 mil. If you walk from aliyas hashemesh, not from Alois Hashach, from Aliyas Hashemesh. If you walk benachas, you'll make it there in the afternoon. Holach v'lo yigia. Now you you began to walk. You didn't get there. Either sheikvu abehemus bedachkam. Sometimes when you're walking with a lot of animals, the animals hold you back. That's one of the excuses Yaakov gave to Esav. Forget about 50 mil. You were in Yerushalayim. Never was then. You were chayla b'raglav. That's called anus, but it's not called derech rechaika. Someone was imprisoned. You can be very close, but you're very far. And they told him, we will release you for the evening. So since you are physically not derech rechaika, sheichet olav, that if Yidden are the ones who are his, the wardens, and they understand Pesach, and they told him, we're going to let you go. Even though the goyim told him we're letting you go, because they might not let him go. But on the other hand, even more than that, since there was a potential for him to eat, he was not tamei. And if during the Zrika we learned there was the potential, even though Ein Pesach, Mishchat, Elo Lo Oichlav, but at that time there was Lo Oichlav, Pratam Elasas Pesach, Sheni Shenishchat Olav. Huh? If he was within the 15 mil. Even Chavosh Biyad Goyim. Even though he was Chavosh Biyad Goyim, and even though they didn't let him go, since they told him to let him go, it's good enough for him to be exempt. The guys, we just learned this. Oinan means oinan, shemes loimes acher chatzois, always. If an oinan prior to afternoon became an oinan, you don't shecht for him. But if he was mechuyev because he wasn't yet an oinan, or hachoy levazoken, that all of these cases they can eat at night, sheshachtu aleim. And they then became tamei. But when? After Zerika, even though because since this man has Zerika, they were yecholim lechol, they are exempted from, they fulfill their obligation, and therefore they don't bring Pesach Sheni. Wow, today was 3 chapters.